welcome to today's episode of Show Me How It's Done. You're probably wondering why my card is a little monochromatic today, and I'm just going to share that this is a little bit more of a personal card. To me, I made it just kind of as a way to get my mojo back, I guess, with crafting. For any of you who don't know, my husband and I we've had quite a journey with trying to have kids. We've been trying for over 8 years now, I guess, and we just haven't been able to get pregnant. I found out in February this year that I was pregnant. Sorry, I said I wasn't gonna cry. And so that was a big surprise for us. It was a really big change, but I was super, super exhausted and, kind of dealing with a bunch of pregnancy hormones and nausea and stuff like that. So February was a bit of a challenge in that regard, and so was January, but we didn't know why at that point. I just thought I was coming down with something. And then in March, unfortunately, we had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. So that was another huge step in our journey. And basically, I kind of feel like my March just flew by. I don't really remember it between recovery and just kind of grief and life, I guess, in general. We do have two little boys who have, come to be part of our family now that needed some attention as well. So I didn't really go into my craft room in all of March, and I was kind of struggling with how to reconnect with something that I am so passionate about, but something that also I know just if I was to get into it would just be so relaxing and peaceful for me. So this is the card that I'm sharing with you today, and I debated sharing it, but I think it's important that now that I've kind of had some time to process and grieve and stuff like that, that it is really good if you're comfortable to share things like this in your life, because you never know who's watching a video like this who may be struggling with something as well. And so I was really blessed by a couple people who stepped up and kind of shared their journeys with me while I was processing everything. And so I'd like to just share my story with you guys as a way to give back and to be able to offer that support to somebody else, and also just offer that acknowledgement to those of you who I do know already out there who have walked through this journey already. So the card that I wanted to show you is very monochromatic when I look at it. It just is very plain and kind of the colors that, you're probably feeling when you're grieving or going through a rough time. And then the message behind the card that I wanted to share was just that there is light behind some of those dark times. So when you open up the card, you get this gorgeous rainbow image. And for me, that's kind of, the typical maybe rainbow baby image that people often call babies who have been lost for miscarriages. But I also wanted to tie in some of those butterfly images, which I always find joy in every spring. And I thought that was just kind of a beautiful way to tie together a card that is maybe just kind of speaking to a tough time in your life, and also the joy and the light that can still be part of your future. So I thought this would be a really good card to share with somebody who's maybe experienced a miscarriage, but it also would be a perfect card to modify and to share with somebody who's just going through any sort of loss. If you've lost a pet, we have some really cute cat and dog punches. You could cut out the silhouette of them and post it in the corner. If somebody's lost a parent, family member, a friend, you can also modify the sentiment on the side just to, say that you're thinking about them, or that you're sharing in their sorrow, like some of our stamps do say. So the one that I chose for this card says, far apart but close at heart. But this Well Said stamp set is a two-part set, so I'm just showing you one of the sentiments, but there is a massive amount of statements and thoughtful sentiments that you can use. And then it's also a great set if you have just some joyous times in life that you want to share too. So the second part of the set has a bunch of family names, kind of like sister, mother, father, aunt, uncle. So it's great for occasions. This is the part of the set that I really wanted to focus on today. And just so you know, it does have tons of dies that go with it as well. So you could have like friend, sympathy, miss you, baby, happy, groom, bride, wedding, birthday. So it's a really, really great set. It's a massive bundle in our catalog. Unfortunately, the two sets I'm showing you today are retiring as of May 3rd this year, but you can still get them right now. They're both still in stock. So I'm going to show you how we're going to tie in the floating and fluttering butterflies and the Well Said stamp, and we're going to make this really cute card. Okay, so let's get going. I have written out for you a nice little sheet of measurements. So if you are somebody who really enjoys just taking a screenshot of those and coming back to them, you can do that. Or you can also rewatch this video later and just pause on this screen while you scribble these down. Okay, so I will tell you which pieces I'm talking about as we go, but I hope that this at least gives you a little bit of a idea of what you're going to need to get started. Okay, so things that you'll want on hand are a Big Shot or a Big Boss. You'll need stitched rectangle dies if you have them, and some black ink, gray ink, colored markers. Those things are easy to add in later, but the cutting you'll probably want to do right alongside what I'm doing. Okay, so how do I put that? There we go. Okay. So to start with, I need a card base. I just chose white. It's very basic and easy to work with. So I have cut my base at 5.5 by 8.5, and I put a score line down the middle here at 4 1/4. So when I fold it in half and burnish it, I have a great card base to work with. I'm not going to be using this right now. I just want to have all my pieces ready to go. So the other two pieces of white that I need to cut are this layer here that we're going to stamp butterflies on and cut a frame out of. So this measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then a pull tab, this one here, while you're cutting your white, you might as well cut this too. So it is 3 inches by 6. So for the moment, we're focusing on this layer 1 piece, that 4 inch by 5 1/4. I'm going to grab my stitched rectangles, and I need the 4th largest one. So if you look in the set of ones that are kind of layered like this, there's 2 other ones. So 4th largest is the one that you're using right here. So with our Big Boss, we're going to grab that machine. This is always awkward to show you on film, so hopefully this works. Okay. All right, so you are going to put this as close to the middle of your space as you possibly can. If you're rather uncomfortable knowing where exactly that is, grab a ruler and just kind of eyeball some of the measurements. It's approximately 3/4 of an inch of a border around. So when you are happy with where this is sitting, I'm just going to stand up a bit. I do suggest grabbing either a sticky note, or I just ordered these Post-it tapes off of Amazon to hold your frame in place. Usually it doesn't matter if something moves a tiny bit, but we really do want this as close to the middle of our space as possible. So I'm just going to tape this into place. Okay, so a Post-it, like I said, would work perfectly. If you have any washi tape, that would work great. You just want something that won't stay on your paper afterwards. Okay, so we're gonna sandwich this in and roll through like so. I like to make sure I'm going nice and slow when I do a project like this, and then just gently take this off. Okay, so what you're left with is your white piece with a hole in the middle of it. And while we have our machine out, we're also going to do a little bit of cutting for a frame. Do you see how I put the skinny black frame around the project? We're going to do that one. So I'm going to just take this white rectangle out. You can use this for a different project. You don't need it. I didn't give you a measurement for the piece of black that you needed, but it needs to be probably about 4 by 5 1/4. It's something that's large enough for the 4th largest and 3rd largest of your stitched rectangles. So to make a frame, and you'll see I'm kind of making use of that inside piece already, I'm going to put my larger die down first, and then my smaller one goes in the middle, and make sure that you have it as close to the center as you can. Okay, so there won't be much of a border to work with, but there will be a little one. And then again, that tape comes in handy just to keep everything in place. We're making 2 little butterflies for our project, so I thought, hey, while my machine's going, throw the butterfly die on there, and then we're going to cut this out. There we go. Okay, I can move this out of my way now, which is great because it kind of takes over a lot of space. Okay, so this butterfly was from that Floating and Fluttering set. We just need 2 of them. It's got a really nice embossed look on the wings. Once that focuses for you, you can see it cuts the silhouette of the butterfly and then does a bunch of embossing on the wing set. So those 2 just set aside for now. We're using them at the very end, but I just like to make good use of my time. So this outside perimeter you could keep, because if you've cut this as a nice rectangle, it's a great frame as well. But these middle pieces here, I have now chopped a bunch of stuff into, so I don't need that. And then just gently move your frame around. So many of you have asked me if I think the stitch dies are something still worth grabbing, even though they're not carrying over. My answer is yes. I use them so much, and you can even go back through my videos and see how much I do put them to use. And as of right now, we don't have anything coming out that does everything they do. We have some cute rectangles, and I'll definitely use them, but the versatility of this set is amazing. Look, I just made a great little frame for my project. So again, I don't need this right now, but I wanted to work on it because it was available. So we're gonna grab our white frame again and do a little bit of stamping. I like to do all of this work before I start attaching everything. So I started with Smoky Slate for my little cluster of butterflies. And it's great. There's a die that actually cuts all of this at once, so it cuts all of the pieces out for you, but you don't have to line up 6 different stamps with their dies. It's just one shot and gone through. So anyways, I've inked this. I'm also going to stamp it off because I don't want my butterflies as dark as they have. I just want a nice subtle gray on the on the frame. Do you see the color difference? If I was to stamp full strength as opposed to stamping off. So again, the idea is you stamp on the ink pad and on a scrap, and then you can keep going around the perimeter of your frame. Okay. So I like these butterflies because they all look very different. I don't have to sit here fitting different pieces in. It's all on the stamp. Okay, but just make sure you go all the way around. And when you reach this last section, you might do it in two stamps. Okay, and sometimes I like to just throw something else in. So there you go. I've got a great perimeter here. You will need this stamp set again, but just stamp it off on your scrap because we're going to use black with it. You don't need to wash it unless you really, really want to. Because once you've stamped it off, there's really not much ink here. So keep that handy, but you don't need it at the moment, okay? So I am going to just put this guy aside for the moment because I want to switch gears and start building some of my rainbow and my monochrome images, okay? So does it matter at all which one you want to start with? Maybe we'll just, for easy sake, show you both things at once. So you do need this frame as a template. So grab a pencil, and just on the inside of it, you're going to roughly draw where your frame would be, both on the card base as well as on the pull tab. The pull tab, keep in mind, you want the edge of your frame lined up with the edge of this pull tab. I'm sorry I didn't explain on the card base. You want to make sure you've got a border around the entire edge. Okay, so it's just like you were putting it on the card front. You've left a little border around and then made your marks. On your pull tab, you're lining up this left side edge with the other left side edge, okay? And you'll notice this piece is only slightly bigger than your rectangle, so you'll have to figure out just by kind of eyeballing that, okay, yes, I can only see white. I haven't accidentally, lined this nice top part up and left a big gap open at the bottom. You're going to make sure that white is visible all on the inside, and then once again, lightly put some of your markers, okay? Like so. So now what I mentioned was it doesn't matter which piece you do first. The pull tab is going to have some neutral colors attached to it, and the card base is going to have your rainbow colors attached to them. Okay, so I'm going to start with my rainbow colors. So you can use any sort of colors that you'd like. I wanted the full color rainbow, so I used Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, Pacific Point, Gorgeous Grape, Real Red, and Pumpkin Pie. These I have cut all the same. They are a half an inch wide by 5 inches long, okay? And you're going to put adhesive onto the back of all 6 pieces, whether you're doing that with tape or seal. It's completely up to you, but we'll just quickly get this across. And I wanted to do the whole strip. I know sometimes we only have to do the ends or whatever, but I did want that adhesive along the whole strip because you want to make sure that this image that's gliding over top has very little resistance, okay? If it catches on other pieces, then it's going to be a little harder and less smooth to work with. Okay. So now that I've got all of those pieces ready to go, I'm just going to start layering them. So you can do it in whatever order you like, but I'm going to put my orange one on the bottom. My space is just slightly larger than the 3 inches this would take up. So this bottom line here, I am going to put my orange over top of it. If I had a nice even square or rectangle, I would rest it on the very top, but I'm just going to see where this ends, and you can actually go past it. I've cut these a little longer, but I still want you to mark this so that you have an idea of the fact that you need to make sure there is color past that line. Okay, if you were to put it on this side of the line, you would have a white empty space when we opened our rainbow. As long as it's past the line, you're good. Okay, so I just roughly center this onto my card and I go right over top of that pencil line. Okay, like that. And then you just build up from there. So I'm going to go with my red next. And they just rest right on top. Yellow. And we're going with our green. And blue. And purple. Okay. Could also be a really nice like diversity card. Maybe you can stamp some like different color handprints of the world around it. So that's another idea for you. But I just like the idea of the rainbow. So we've got our rainbow hiding in the background here. So on the monochromatic side, however, this is where things get fun. So I have cut 5 strips here. You can see I have 2 Smoky Slate, 2 Gray Granite, and then 1 of the basic gray, just because the rectangle I picked didn't fit them perfectly. If I had moved the size up, I could have fit a second basic gray, but I liked being able to stamp around the border. So you can always play with the card yourself. This is the one I originally mocked up, so you can see I have very little room to actually stamp anything around. You wouldn't really notice the butterflies, but I was able to put 2 of each of the colors. So that was just the change that I decided on. So to cut these pieces, you need them a 1/2 inch wide once again, but these are 5.5 inches long. Okay, and you do actually, I guess, need a scoreboard of some sort. Or if you have our trimmer, you'll notice the lightest tool here is actually a scoring blade. So we need to score all of them at 1/2 inch. Okay, so scoring means just putting a little line on here. We're making sure not to use the dark blade, which would cut it. We're just using this nice roller and putting a mark on all of the pieces. Okay. So once you have done that to all of them, you need your little folder because we're going to bend that little piece backwards and make sure it's nicely scored. Okay, and you really do want to have a bone folder because I made this mistake when I made this card. I didn't work my paper at all. So when I started pulling on it, you see the more I pull on it, the bigger some of these like paper bends get, and they actually kind of bend upwards in random spots. as opposed to my initial sample where I remembered to do this technique. My papers nicely bend back and forth, and you don't see any creases on them. So let me show you how to work your paper a little bit so you get a nice pull instead of some bending on your sheets. Okay, so I've bent them all. Now you can just hold on to this little tab and gently with your folder, you're going to just work the paper. It's going to have a very big bend in it, so you can kind of bend it back into place because we don't need it bent. You just want the fibers in the paper to have loosened up. Okay, so bend them, but then smooth out again. Okay, and you need to do that to all of them. So kind of give it nice working here, but then smooth it back into place. This will help your little rainbow on the front here be able to move without bending your sheets. Okay, and sometimes if you've got a really thick piece, just bend it the other way too. Nice back and forth. That should be good. Okay, just want flexibility, I guess, in your paper. There we go. And the fifth one. There we go. Okay, now on each of the little tabs, if you have your papers laid out in front of you, I guess you could probably order them like so. Let's just put our little tabs onto the left-hand side of our workspace. You can now either grab some liquid glue, which would hold them quite nicely, or a glue dot, but that's not as strong, or some double-sided tape. So I'm going to use double-sided tape just simply because glue takes longer to dry, and I want to be able to show you this card when we're finished talking, but I did use glue on my other projects because it gives a nice firm hold right here. Okay, so I've put a little bit of adhesive onto that tiny little section on this side here. Now we're going to bring in our pull tab. Once again, I did draw this line here for you. If you want to be meticulous and try and line up your pieces to it, you can. However, I've made these long enough that you can actually just use the edge of the paper as a score line instead, and it will make your life a little easier in the long run. So I'm showing you this idea because you can do it if you want to, but the measurements I've given you are intended for you to take this piece and fold the tab back, line it up on the bottom line here against the edge of your white paper. Okay, I know my hand's in the way, but I'll show you here. So that tab is folded underneath, and this gray, I'm starting with at the bottom, is resting on top of my little line right here. Okay, like so. And then you're just going to keep going up, just like we did with the other pieces. So make sure this is lying flat and that you're resting this piece right on top of it, like so. They will keep popping up because unlike our rainbow pieces, the majority of it is not attached, so you do have to keep putting your hand down and resting that together. Last one here should roughly line up with this mark that you have at the top, maybe slightly below it, and that's okay. just need these to fit within this space. Okay, so there we go. We should have a set of 5 strips. If you flip them up, they should be connected along the edge here. And you do want to make sure to now erase these parts, because on this specific piece, we're going to be seeing what's inside of it. Okay. So you can do the rest of the stamping in any order. I think for me, I'm going to start with the butterflies. So if I was to just put this down for the moment, you can see this section on the right will be what's visible as my pull tab. And what's under here is where I want to stamp those hidden butterflies. So I'm going to grab my Memento black and just ink a set of butterflies up. The reason I'm not using the Smoky Slate is because the Memento black is our standard for any sort of coloring work. The markers won't pull the color into themselves, and you won't wreck your marker or your image with them. Okay, so I roughly can see that if I was to put my stamp here, my butterflies will be hidden within this little section. So I'm just going to move those out of my way and stamp this down. And then I thought it would be really fun to color them in all different ways. So different colors. You can definitely get creative and do some shading and all that, but I just wanted that rainbow idea to carry over from my paper strips to these butterflies that are now not gray and kind of lifeless. They are vibrant and they have lots of color hiding in them too. So whatever way you want to do this, it's totally up to you. Probably use a finer tip for this. And I had blends in all of the coordinating paper colors, except instead of Gorgeous Grape, I used Highland Heather, and instead of Pacific Point, I used Balmy Blue. So almost the same, just not quite. I just used the dark in each of the sets. But if I was to pull the light ones in, I'd also get some beautiful shading as well. And Balmy Blue. Just like the black too, because really a monarch butterfly would be black and orange, so it at least gives a thread of authenticity to this guy up here. There we go. So while this is open, I'm also going to do a little bit of stamping for my sentiment. So can lay that down again and just turn this 90 degrees. And basically the area that you see is what you have to work with. So I'm going to do my sentiment, far apart but close at heart. And then I'm also going to add a couple more butterflies. These are going to be very random, just hanging off the edge of my project here. One set and two. Okay, now it does look just fine if you have the blunt square ends, but I thought if you wanted to soften it a little bit, you can grab a corner rounder. We unfortunately don't have this one anymore, but if you own the envelope punch board, or if you own any of our old corner rounders, or even a circle punch, you can just feed this into it you can just soften the edge of your tag. You can see the difference between kind of a blunt pull and just a nice little softened edge. But just any sort of corner rounding tool will just give you a nice little image here. Okay, so now it's time to start assembling things. So the first two things that we're going to attach are our pull tab and the frame. Okay, so if we were to lay this out like so, our frame would go over top of this section. You've got the right side little tag hanging out, and then the of course that tag is resting along the edge of this. Okay, and then our strips are within the rectangle that you see. So if you can imagine, we need to attach this side of the frame to the strips so that when we pull here, they are still attached here. They're not coming out the ends, but they're already attached on the left to that tag, so we don't need to attach them to our card as well. Okay, so this right side, take it, flip it over, keep a finger on it if you need to, and let's put some adhesive right here. So the easiest way to do that is just a really great strip of the double-sided tape, like so. And this is what we're going to use to attach these pieces. So if you're really unsure, you can sit here and go one by one all the way across like this. And then when you close up your card, it will be correct. Or if you're feeling brave, you can also try to have this lying on the table and lining it up like this. Okay, so my first thing that I'll do is make sure the left-hand side is lined up correctly. It's not going over. And then I've got my strips of paper visible on the inside of this project, like so. And then I just want to make sure that these strips are flat. So I'm going to move my hand over, flatten them, and then gently press this piece down. Okay, so when I lift it, it is attached to this set of strips. And if I lifted it the other way, you could kind of pull it apart like this. Okay. While this is open and available, get rid of that little excess adhesive because we don't want that messing up your card. We're going to now attach this piece to our card base. You can sit here with dimensionals and go all the way along if you want, but the easiest way to do this is our foam adhesive strips. So if you own any of these, this is what you're going to want. So they come in a nice kind of puffy dimensional thickness like this, but they're a long strip. So they're going to give us the support that we want and almost kind of like a track so that we make sure that our rainbow stays in a straight line. So I'm going to put one strip right on the top of my tag or my pull tab here and just trim any excess that you have. Okay, like that. And then I'm also going to put a second strip on the very top of the card here, and I'll need to grab some excess from another strip to finish it, but that's okay. I don't want to waste it. Grab another, and I'll just flip this over so you can see this is technically the bottom now of my card. I'm doing the same thing. Made sure this is nice and flat. I'm going to rest just right alongside of it with my strip like that, so that this piece can open and shut. It's not being hampered in any way. And then we'll just need a little bit more. I think I had some scraps in here. So just finish this piece off. So it's maybe a little excessive, but I know that this card is going to get opened and closed quite a bit, so I want a lot of stability for it. All right, so you can see I've got all of those strips on. You can go ahead and take the backings off. And then we're going to put this over top of the front of this card. So again, just leaving a tiny little border around the outsides. It won't be big. But then when you press it down, only your top and bottom are attaching, and that's okay. You should be able to now gently pull your card. And you see this paper is not bending as much as this one did because it's got a nice amount of flex in it. Okay, so you can pull it back and you can see the rainbow coming through and then the rainbow butterflies as well. And then to finish it off, we're going to come back in with that frame that we had nicely cut out. So if you want it popped up, you could use those thin adhesive strips, but I like it flat on the card. So I'm just going to grab some glue, which I swear I did have going. It doesn't like me. Oh, it's because you're almost empty. Come on, buddy. You can do it. There we go. Oh, that's lots. Okay. Good thing I have a Kleenex here. And this is scrap paper. Okay, there we go. Lots of excess. Let's try that again. Dots all the way across. It's really all you need. They'll kind of spread out and attach for you. If you like every single part of your frame touching, then you can just grab a sponge at this point and dab it all the way around, but I don't really find that necessary. This rectangle will go right around this perimeter, and I like the glue because it gives me the ability to move. I'm not exactly happy with where they sat the first time. Okay, sorry, I'm working in the bottom now because I don't want to touch this circle of glue. Okay, and those butterflies I mentioned, that's where we're going to bring them in now. So one of them will remain flat. One of them we're going to take our bone folder and just move the wings up a little bit so they look like they're flying. Put a dimensional onto the back of that one and put it straight on top of its partner. It will just give you the tiniest little shadow look like that. And then we're also going to do one more dimensional so that it looks like it's coming off the page. And I just put it in this bottom corner here. Make sure not to put it onto any of the colored strips because you still want to be able to move the colored strips. If you have the butterfly attached, that'll make it a lot harder for you to do that. Okay, so I think that is all the moving parts of this card. I will give you the little hint that if you want a little simpler of a card or more colorful, instead of doing kind of monotone colors here, you can cut colored strips with the measurements that I've given you, and then you'd have a rainbow on the front of your card. And on the inside, perhaps you don't even need to have strips. You could simply stamp a sentiment that somebody would read when they open this card up. But as I explained, just liked the idea of kind of the light after dark. and just the rainbow coming through. So I hope you enjoyed today's card. I hope that maybe you are able to think of somebody that you could recreate this for, or that it's just kind of in the back of your mind as a future project. But as I mentioned, if you just want a nice fun cherry card, go ahead and swap these strips out for rainbow strips right now. And then it'll be fun and bright and cheery for you. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys so much just for your love and support. Those of you who did know kind of what we were going through, and just for your patience for my club members and customers as well. I know I definitely still owe you a few PDFs and stuff like that, but I just really thank you for your grace and for your love right now. So thank you. We're getting back into it, and I just hope that this card was able to kind of just share a piece of me with you, and give you a chance just to maybe share a piece of yourself with somebody else in the future. So I love you guys. I will see you next week. Bye.